Hey everybody, it's Jay and it's Eric, and we are back from NHMS and the Halloween Hooptiefest. Of course, this is great. It's October. There's picturesque foliage and a ton of bad driving.
Ahead of this race, I was asked to come speak about lemons at the Lars Anderson Auto Museum just outside of Boston. I still don't know entirely why, but they let us bring the Church of Fauxism's Ford Focus into the museum for my speech, where they parked it among the current display, which is Italian masterpieces. Amazing.
Hella sweet at this race, it was Kim Harmon's birthday, and so we made sure that all the racers really got into the spirit.
Happy birthday to you.
On Saturday night, Steve and Jen Clayman also renewed their vows in what could only be described as a really bizarre scene wedding thing officiated by Jeff Wakeman of Three Pedal Mafia.
That happened at the Saturday Night Potluck, which was hosted by 3 p.m. And to the potluck, Team Floodstang brought their best costume contest, which actually brought out costumes that I think for the first time in history really creeped out even a Lemons paddock.
The costume contest wasn't limited to the racers. We, as the Lemons judges, decided to come in costume as well. I'm a big baseball fan. This was during the World Series, so I dressed in my finest John McGraw-style old-timey baseball manager outfit, and judges Janice German and Aaron Cole jumped in with me. We think we look pretty good.
However, there was also butt terrible, particularly the driving on Saturday was butt terrible, so butt terrible that Eric had to call a Sunday drivers meeting and chew everybody out. I don't actually know how effective it is to get yelled at by a guy dressed like Cy Young, but he did.
Going back to the recurring baseball theme, we had a driver sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and he remembered all of the words, and it kind of wasn't terrible.
It's 1, 2, 3 strikes you're out at the old ball. And also the Lemons race.
I also cooked up this idea of having Lemons drivers present like a 1990s style dating service video. Before there was Tinder or Bumble, you sent a video application talking about how awesome you were to prospective partners. So we decided that Lemons racers should do this for, their prospective partners. I think they nailed it.
Hello, my name is Matt Dodge. I gotta tell you, I love great music like Nickelback.
I'm the Spice Girls.
My name is Nick, and I enjoy antiquing on the weekends.
My name is Aaron, and my favorite movie is The Notebook.
I drive a Nissan Leaf, and I love it.
Now, we had a lot of people driving off the track, so Judge Janice had them draw the track from memory, which went exactly as well as you would have expected it to. It was Halloween, so we had people carving pumpkins, and we brought back the spare change penalty. You have to go through the paddock and you have to find a coin, a penny, a nickel, all of the coins from the year that your car was made. Nobody carries change anymore. This is basically now impossible.
We had several entertaining rookie teams. Hella sweet among them was the Uninsurables and their Mazda Miata. Now, this is a Miata that was prepared by a high school shop class, and the intention was to let the kids drive the car, about which the school said absolutely not, their insurance wouldn't cover it, hence the name. So the instructor and some of his dumb friends got to race the car instead. And like we've seen almost categorically when this happens, the car runs flawlessly when the kids prepare it, and the driving is butt terrible. But the kids did a great job designing it with Sharpie markers that they did over an entire year. That was hella sweet.
Kind of butt terrible was the rookies of RNS Racing. They brought a Z24, which was actually an E36. They were sort of working this gag like, oh no, it's a Cavalier Z24. And they had the graphics and they had, Calvin peeing on a BMW Roundel. And that was pretty good. Unfortunately, they still drove like BMW douchebags and flagged out both days.
Equal parts hella sweet and butt terrible were the bastards of Biddeford and their Chevy Cobalt. They showed up on some off-brand, never heard of, built in Thailand tires. That was actually hella sweet. Unfortunately, they had only had the car for about 3 weeks, so they were rushing to get it done. The cage was not even built when they showed up. They obviously failed tech. We figured we would see them no more this weekend. And yet, they showed up Saturday morning with everything fixed. That was awesome. The car was super slow, the tires were really, really bad, and they still beat 35 cars.
Hella sweet, the Volkswagen Beetle of ZZ Stop. These guys, they keep adding the ZZ Top graphics. By 2025, they're going to have a totally dialed theme. But it is two incomprehensible Germans doing ZZ Top impressions, so that is hella sweet.
Always great to see Team Hesh in their 1982 Ford Escort YU Ruin Classic. Now, this thing is a perfect Lemons car down to the extremely cracked dashboard that has been that way for, 40 years. This is accented, of course, by the perfect metalhead Hesher outfits on the team.
Hella sweet, as always, the
Hella sweet, Stinkin' Shinkin' in their Audi A6. Now, every time this car shows up, we are summarily floored by everything they're doing. And what they're doing is running an A6 engine in the front, and in the back seat, they have put in a snowmobile engine that runs the chain to a pulley on the differential like it's a direct supercharger. It is amazing. We have no idea how they came up with it. We have no idea even how it works, but it does. Until it doesn't. And in this case, it threw a rod right out of the snowmobile engine, but the upside is, it still keeps running, and it's not that much slower, really.
Hella sweet, old guys with angry wives. Yet another great team name. They have this Honda Civic, and these guys, they don't care about being competitive. They're not aggro. Very often their cars are running great, and you'll see them just hanging out, eating a sandwich, calling their mom, whatever. We love these guys. So they had this car, a little while ago at a mechanic, and the mechanic said, I can put a JDM Integra motor in that thing. K-Series, you're going to dominate. And they're like, well, we don't know what any of that means, but we'll give you $500 to do it. So they did. They showed up with this thing. They pointed it out to the judges and said, hey, we got this cheaty-ass Integra motor. We want you to give us so many penalty laps that we're going to be racing to get to zero. And we did. We gave them 500 laps. And they finished minus 331. We're going to have to narrow that down to fit their driving ability and level of aggression.
Hella sweet, the opposite of engine swapping is Mr. H Motorsports and their Volvo 760. Now, this car is about 15 races into running Lemons, and they are on only their second PRV V6. Now, what is a PRV V6? It is a Peugeot, Renault, and Volvo joint project from the 70s that was most famously used in the DeLorean DMC-12. The engine everybody roundly mocks. This race, they finished 20th with about the 95th quickest lap, and they kind of do this every single time. It is amazing. We don't know why everybody isn't running PRV V6s.
Hella sweet, yet again, 3-pedal Mafia. They won overall, they won Class B, they hosted the potluck, and they wore inflatable costumes all weekend long. Well, everybody should be these people.
And speaking of double class winners, Neil Losi drove both the Class B and Class C winners.
All right, let's move on to the real trophies here. The heroic fix went to the Folly from Mount Holly. They have this, 15-year-old Hemi Charger Stellantis excrescence. They're driving around the track, and all of a sudden, there's smoke. Probably a fire. The driver did the right thing, pulled over, and GTFO. Problem turns out to be they ran their kill switch lead right past the iron headers, and every time they turned, would hit the header, the insulation eventually wore away, and kaboom. All right, well, that's a bit of a problem, but it's solvable, right? Not quite, because this is an automatic. Now they have no working kill switch. They can't get electricity back into the car, so they can't put it in neutral to get it off the flatbed. They were in the pits for like a half an hour with the tow truck driver, and you're like, I don't know what to do. This car weighed 9,000 pounds. Like, we need a Boeing helicopter to get it off. I don't know how they finally did it. They did get it off. They rewired the kill switch. They got everything away from the fire tube coming out of the engine and proceeded to have every other mechanical woe. But they kept at it, and this horrible car, which wouldn't even drive brand new, finished the race.
Before we moved on, I wanted to point out that the theme for this giant-ass Charger was Richard Petty's failed bid at the North Carolina Attorney General, which he lost because all of his campaign stops accidentally, or maybe intentionally, turned into autograph sessions. I Got Screwed went to Hua Racing, who were some rookies with a Chevy Cavalier wagon. Now, speaking of questionable build quality, These things were awful, and I know this because my sister had this exact car in the 1990s, and I think they had all of the same problems that she did, which is to say, transmission failure, half-shaft problems, electrical gremlins, general GM-ness that really you can't quite describe until you've lived through it. They almost gave up and bought another car, but they said, nah, let's just stick with this one and see what happens. They did not finish the race, but they were very enthusiastic about the whole thing. We love these guys. Cannot wait to see them back.
We had a special trophy at this race. It was the Crawled Through a River of trophy, which I think was very appropriately named, frankly. Here's a little backdrop. Lots of people in this race were waving their arms around and going, it is impossible to drive clean out there. It cannot be done. Well, these guys, they're a bunch of dirt trackers. They brought their Ford Focus. Their buddies have this pink Buick, which is a whole nother great story. We'll get into that some other day. They showed up, and like all dirt trackers, they did not pass tech the first time. Well, okay, we sent them away. Unlike all dirt trackers, they fixed it. They came back. It was perfect. They didn't give anybody any heartburn. Unlike all dirt trackers, they then went out and stayed super clean all weekend, first time out there, and they had nary a scratch. They finished 33rd overall with like the 98th fastest lap on the track. These guys were awesome. And let me just add, I'm 57 years old. I saw Shawshank Redemption when it came out. I was like 12. I don't remember any of that. I had to have Eric remind me. The whole gag here for the trophy is the Morgan Freeman line, it crawled through a river of came out clean on the other side.
As long as we're talking about accents, I suppose, we should talk about the Judges' Choice winners, who are Hua Racing. About 10 years ago, I got a message from this crazy English automotive journalist named Rich Duisberg, who wanted to come do lemons. It took him 8 years, and he had a race all lined up for himself in April 2020. So obviously that didn't happen. He got the chance for a do-over and showed up at New Hampshire renting a car from Tim Bradley and Hua Racing, and then he talked a bunch of his really dumb English friends into coming and racing with him. So they all flew over from London a day early and met up in Boston, and then they jumped into Tim's Miata. Now, they brought with them a Queen the Band Queen's Funeral mashup that was really great. They had a teammate black flag during the race just for giggles. They read a flawless dating video copy and generally made Lemons the playground that they had always wanted it to be. That was awesome. In addition, Rich wrote this book called Nothing Handles Like a Rental Car, which is the prize for winning the Lemons Rallies rental car class. We wanted him to sign copies of this, so he was over. We had the chance for him to sign it, and instead of him signing it, we had somebody who had racked up a bunch of black flags sign them for him. That was hella sweet.
The organizer's choice went to Boner Wolf. The organizer's choice went to Boner Wolf. This is one of those teams, they're really smart. They have two identical cars so they can swap parts and they know everything. The cars are a turbocharged Miata and a Camaro, because of course they are. Now, last time we saw this Camaro, they said, you know what, we just give us a bunch of penalty laps because we don't even want to care. Okay, fine. As if that wasn't enough, they also delivered us this time framed fine art. Now, just look at this. I don't know, if you don't have an art critic background, if you didn't go to the École des Beaux-Arts, you probably won't recognize that this is a fine figurative painting of a fairy farting a cloud that is then watering a plant. So you combine that with the team name, Boner Wolf, and you got something going on with these guys. And we asked them, what's that all about? And they said, well, you know, a werewolf clearly retains the normal desires of a man. This is what we're dealing with.
The eBay Halloween Meets Gasoline trophy goes to the team that we think brings the best theme, and it went to Hua Racing team, another two-car team, again with identical cars. Of course, talking about a Jelly Bean Ford Taurus and a Toyota Camry Solara. Now, we've seen these guys before. They are from Maine. And boy, Maine, that is a place that unless you are from New England, you have no idea what to think of anybody from there. So it was really difficult for us to tell where the main theme began and the real people ended and vice versa. Ultimately, we loved every minute of it. There was a Moxie sponsorship, which is the main version of Coca-Cola, which is to say you pour half a bottle of RC Cola out and replace it with Robitussin. And then the Solara was, John Deere / John Moose themed in a way that I'm sure makes perfect sense in Maine. We loved every minute of it. They were wearing flannel the whole time, as you do. Wonderfully done, horrible racing.
And that just takes us to the index of effluency, the top prize for doing the most with the least. This goes to Flatball Racing and their Lancia Scorpion. Yes, the same Lancia Scorpion that long ago won the IOE in California. Now in California, it took those guys forever to make this temperamental piece of crap even function, and even when they won the IOE with it back then, they did not complete many laps. And we just said, hey, that's 1976 Lancia, man. I mean, you can't do any better than that. It's not you, it's the car. Turns out it was them. These guys, they got the car, they sorted it out, and it's been running great. In fact, they beat like 80 cars with this thing this weekend. Super strong. It's a mid-engine supercar now. In fact, it turns out a 76 Lancia Scorpion in the right hands, such a good car, they just bought another one. Love it, IOE. Okay, here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Change tires and put new, very used tires on. The new, very used tires were still better than this.
Yeah.
So you don't get grip after you get to this.